How exactly do economists predict when recessions might happen? They use three primary tools: the National Activity Index, the Leading Economic Index, and then finally the Treasury Spread or the yield curve. So let's go ahead and see what each one of these measures or tools is going to entail. First, with the National Activity Index. This is a weighted average of 85 indicators of economic activity, and it's developed by the Federal Board of Chicago. So essentially, the people that make up the National Activity Index, they take a look at 85 indicators of economic activity. They go ahead, delve through the millions of data points that they have to take a look at. These indicators include income, they include production, they include stock prices, housing prices, unemployment, inflation. You can go ahead and take a look at their website to see exactly all of these indicators, but those are the main ones that they go ahead and take a look at. And once they gather all of this data, they're going to put it into their own methodology, into their own programming sort of program, and out will pop one specific number. And this one number will tell us exactly what they believe the economy will be doing, or they state about what the health of the economy is. And if this number ever falls below a negative 0.7, they are predicting a recession is very, very likely within the economy. So in terms of this National Activity Index, this is actually probably the second most commonly used way to predict when recessions might actually happen. And we have to go ahead and see what this one number is going to be telling us. And once again, they actually don't let their methodology known to the public, so we just have to go ahead and take their word for it. And we can go ahead and see what this number is going to be telling us. So let's go ahead and take a look at the National Activity Index a little bit more in depth. So the National Activity Index. And there are three specific values that the National Activity Index can actually take. First, what happens if the index gives us a value of 0? Index equals to 0. So if the index equals to 0, so let me make that a better 0. If the index equals to 0, it just says that, hey, everything is at its benchmark, everything within the economy is stable, and we're predicting the economy to grow at historical trend rate. So here, the economy is growing at historical trend rate of growth. At historical trend rate of growth. So essentially everything within the economy is normal, everything is hunky-dory. So once they gather all this data and plug it into their methodology, into their equation, and the index returns a value of 0, we're predicting the economy is going to be growing at its historical trend rate of growth. So everything is normal. What happens if the index becomes negative, however? So index equals negative. If the index turns negative, that's where we're expecting bad times to happen within the economy. The economy is going to be growing slower than the long-term trend. Economy is growing slower than the long-term trend. So this is exactly where we're expecting a slowdown within the economy. And here, if the index ever goes past negative 0.7, that's when we're expecting the recession to happen. So here, the further away you get from 0, the more extreme the predictions become. So if it's a negative value of, say, maybe negative 0.3, negative 0.4, negative 0.25, then we're just expecting the economy just to slow down by quite a bit. However, if the index ever returns a value, say negative 0.7, negative 0.8, negative 1.2, then that's exactly when we're expecting the recession to come in within the economy. And the same idea holds true on the opposite case when the index is positive. So index equals a positive number. If the index returns a positive number, then we're expecting the economy to pick up very, very rapidly or grow faster than the long-term trend. So economy is growing faster than the long-term trend. So here, this can be, say, positive 0.1, positive 0.5, positive 1.5, positive 0.3. Remember, the further away these numbers get from 0, the more extreme the predictions become. So we can go ahead and take a look at what the National Activity Index does look like in application. Every single month, the Federal Board of Chicago does release their predictions with the National Activity Index, and the one that I pulled up is actually the one from March and April of 2020. So let's go ahead and see what the National Activity Index tells us. So Here, led by declines in production and employment-related indicators, the Chicago Fed National Activity Index fell to negative 4.19 in March from positive 0.06 in February. So what is this National Activity Index predicting to happen within the economy for this time period? Well, it was positive in February, so we are expecting a trend rate of growth that was historical or just a little bit faster than the long-term trend, but it became very vastly and very, very negative in March due to the COVID-19 sort of outbreak and basically shutting down the economy. So a negative 4.19 far surpasses the negative 0.7 threshold. So we are indicating that a recession is predicted to happen in the time period after March, after April 2020, essentially because this is when their data sort of comes from. As you can see right here, they give you a very colorful graph. We have it from all the way from 2010 all the way to 2020 when the data was first available, when the latest data is available. And as you can see, the more indicators that are positive above the zero threshold mark right here, we're indicating good times within the economy. But the more indicators that go below right here, the more that we're predicting a recession to happen. And in March and April of 2020, we see that this is a very, very historic event with this indicator going all the way down below negative 4. It's never happened before in the history of this National Activity Index. So as you can see right here, these are very unusual times. So we are predicting a very, very bad slowdown with the economy based on the data after March 2020. So here, they do it for every single month. As you can see right here, they do rolling, moving averages as well, just to smooth it out. But as you can see right here, it goes negative, positive, negative, negative, positive, essentially because there was a lot of uncertainty during this time period. So once again, just go ahead and take a look at these three particular values right here. And remember, the further away it becomes from zero, the more extreme the predictions do become. The second indicator or second tool that we can use in order to predict recessions is the leading economic index. And this is going to be a measure of 10 important leading indicators, and this is made by the Conference Board. So instead of using 85 indicators, they just focus in on 10 leading indicators. So things like stock prices and incomes, just for example. And in terms of a recession, they are predicting a recession is going to be likely if this index falls 3 consecutive months in a row. So let's go ahead and take a look in application what the leading economic index is going to look like right here. And like the National Activity Index, they do release it every single month. So you can go ahead and Google the press releases to see what they see every single month. So as you can see right here, the Conference Board Leading Economic Index for the U.S. declined 6.7% in March to 104.2, following a 0.2 decrease in February and a 0.4% increase in January. So right now, according to the data, for the data that I've pulled up so far, we've experienced 2 consecutive months of decreases with the leading economic index. So if it falls one more month in April, then that's exactly where they are predicting a recession could happen. And the leading economic index, we can see a little bit more clearly with the graph right here. It's not as pretty as the National Activity Index, but it does provide us with another tool to predict recessions. Anytime in economics you have a timeline and you notice that you have these shaded bars right here, this is indicating when a recession actually took place. So our past 2 recessions, it happened in the early 2000s, and then the past recession that we had was the Great Recession in the late 2000s, the financial crisis. And the blue line is exactly what we want to be honing in on just a little bit, because this is the leading economic index, what we just described. And in the time period before each one of these recessions, what do we see happening to this blue line? We see the blue line falling we see the blue line essentially falling quite precipitously for more than 3 months. So for more than 3 consecutive months. In the 2000 recession, early 2000, we see it falling right here, and bam, a recession happened after that. We recovered, and then with a Great Recession, we see the indicator falling once again, falling very, very steeply, and then bam, another recession. And what exactly do we have with leading economic indicators right now? We see 2 consecutive months of declines, and then we are more than likely to see another month of decline. So this is, once again, where another recession may be happening for the United States based on the current data that is being provided as of right now, for the data that I pulled up. So 2 tools that we've had so far that can be fairly useful for predicting when recessions might happen, and they are fairly sort of good at predicting recessions. While these two tools are fairly reliable at predicting when recessions may happen, the most prominent tool that economists are going to use to predict recessions is going to deal with the yield curve and the treasury spread, and we'll go ahead and build that up in our next video.